I have a theory that like East Coast time zones get things done a lot quicker than anybody else. Like, in fact, I've got a partner, our CEO and leader of like Snibs. He he decided to live in New York for the past month, and like he's like, the amount of stuff that I get done. He's normally in LA. He's like, is ridiculous.
Nah, I feel the pace for sure. Like they say, it's like the city that never sleeps, like a New York minute. Like you really feel that though. Like time moves in a different dimension when you're there.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'm feeling the color palette you put together here, man. Going from the hat to the tee to the overshirt as well. It's all really coming together for you.
Thank I tried to.
I tried to. Yeah. And I went to my dentist the other day, and he's been in tune with like my career shift in the past year. He's like, man, I feel like every time I see you, you're just getting more and more casual. And I was like, I just kind of just feel like this is who I am. You know?
Nah, really
Thank God.
getting more and more rich. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, just more. Yeah.
Nah, because that's
One.
really that's what it is. And we'll talk about that's like the first point we want to bring up today was like talking about your company and brushing off corporate habits and blah 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 blah. Because like even for us, like it was interesting when we started working with like we considered like VC companies like one of the highest level of business. And when we're like working on all of their brand stuff, they're like no suits, no corporate, no none of that. We can't depict any of that in what we're doing because it's like startup, like da 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 da. Like the founders, like they wear like zip up hoodies and like t-shirts. Like they never dress up at all. Like they don't know how to dress at all. Like I've never seen anybody in private equity wear a suit. And those are like the richest.
It's fascinating to me. So what I take that as, and this is maybe stereotyping, but it's also like not wanting to have an opinion on clothing. So like for me, like I don't know, not to bring up like but like Kanye is a perfect example of this, where he dressed for like the moment of like what he's in. Like you can pick streetwear, yay. You can pick like the Rosewood, yay, was impeccable. Like my beautiful dark twisted fantasy, where they're only wearing suits and like all that stuff. Like everybody was just wearing perfectly tailored suits and like all that. You can go to Mitchell and Ness, yay, or Polo, yay. You can go to Margiela, and I guess my point is like once I have a deep opinion on all my clothing. Everything that I own, everything that I buy, I have a reason for it. But on any given day, I could be wearing, like, if I'm really in a drawing mode, I'll be wearing a Jordan jersey most of the time. One of my 398 Mitchell and Nesses is like what I'll be wearing. I'm like, yo, I got to perform. And then if I'm like, I don't know, if I just got like an awesome pair of shoes, like layering the pants with it and like every part of it, like when I got my 97s, my Air Max 97s, like, oh, we're throwing on the Stone Island liquid nylon, just going full reflective for this like whole thing. So it's like for me, it's like deep opinion and like for him to say that I looked really casual, I really put that whole thing together very hardly. So like I had on a Stussy tee, a Union over their Union overshirt, a pair of Dark Shadow Stone Island like suede pants that they did years ago, and then a pair of HTM what did they call that shoe? It wasn't the Air Mock.
I can see the fit though. I know exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And like I mean it was very well thought out, and then my Yankee hat, and he's like, God, you're just getting so casual. I'm like, casual with thought, yeah, but yeah, how, but it is fitting. I mean, like, you are who you want to be, right? So those like venture capitalists, man, they probably like, no, I don't want to wear a suit, but this feels good on me. Like,
Or
my favorite dude. Yeah, go ahead.
now I was gonna say because you pointed out what I'm wearing. There's like actually like big story behind all of my clothes and like thought into it that goes super deep. Like this kimono that I'm wearing is the sample or like reference piece that I use to make the cashmere kimono for different. And I bought this when I took Avant Garde, this line, the t-shirt that I'm wearing, to Paris Fashion Week. And I bought this at Kith right when we got off the plane in Paris. On top of that, my mentor that showed me all around the garment district, which is like how I went and made the cashmere kimono. He designed SS22 for Aimé Leon Dore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, John Taylor. And so, like, I'm wearing my brand, but like, there's a big story behind like why I'm wearing like what I have. And I always, well, all my fits are like that because I'm always wearing my brand.
Well, and it's like that motivational piece too, where it like keeps you thinking differently. I mean, you have a piece that inspired you, you had a piece that you proved you could do, you had like your mentor's thoughts, like all those things live with you consistently within that. I think that that's something that when I talk to somebody, well, I'll talk to like friends from home, and it's fine. They don't have to. But like they don't grasp like why are you buying that? Why are you wearing that? I would never spend that money, or vice versa.
I would never spend that money. That point though, that's the point that can't be, because these are assets. I can sell my closet right now and make probably 10 bands at least.
Yeah.
And like everything, not just clothes, but like think of everything as assets. Like I could sell the ring, I could sell the wallet or whatever and make money. Like literally everything I buy is asset. So it's never lost money. Like you make money on the buy. That's like big money. You make money on the buy.
I also, though, like on my flip side, and maybe this doesn't pan out the way I always wanted to, but like I would much rather support groups of people that are putting like their heart, soul, and energy into it. And if that costs me more money, okay, that's cool. But like I can feel the energy and effort and time, and there's a separation of some of that stuff. Like I mean, a Louis Vuitton's a mass-produced product, like just using that as an example. But they have their pieces that separate from the others, right? But like I want those people that are just as passionate about what they're doing with theirs as what I'm either am doing or trying to do, you know? Yeah. Yo, you brought I got one little story, just one little one. You brought up the because I know you like the Corvette too, but you brought up the venture capitalists, like you never see them wearing like anything great. So when we were doing the C8, the mid-engine Corvette, right? Like realistically, we started that in like 2013. In roughly 14 or 15, I can't remember when Gavin was born. I think Gab was born, so let's call it 15. My son, that's how I tell time now. But like we did what we call, we would go out, basically bring in focus groups together, right? So we called it a clinic, but they didn't know who we were, right? So just to be clear, like they had no idea that they were looking at the next gen Corvette at that time. And you have renderings and models and other things that are put up, and we obviously, as we were going to mid-engine, it's a big flipping deal. Like you're entering a new market, like, and on top of that, like you're entering haloed ground, right? Like hollowed ground of these halo products that are around the planet. So we also did our own question and answer with all the people that were there, and the people, we could get very selective of who we picked. So we had to like we picked people that owned cars that were 140,000 and above. And it was fun for us to be like watching in the back rooms and being like, who owns what, like what car out in the parking lot, who owns what. I'll tell you what, man, a McLaren P1 pulled in, and like that's like obviously one of the rarest of the rare. And everybody was like, we were all outside not even paying attention to the clinic, like just looking at the car. And then we came back in, and one of the main conversations we were having was getting rid of a manual gearbox, which is obviously a sensitive subject to many. And this enthusiast went on like this 10-minute diatribe of why we should never give up a manual transmission. And this guy stands up in like a Kirkland like polo, tucked into like just standard Wrangler type denim, and he's like, he just starts listing off all the cars he owns, and he's like, and I own that McLaren P1 out in the parking lot, and I can tell you right now, the future is not a manual transmission. It will be these dual clutch transmissions. And like, I mean, it is the absolute truth, but the other part is like, visually we all had this like image in our head of like some dude that's probably from like Monte Carlo that is like in this immaculate like suit, and it was the exact opposite of the human being. Nobody that you would like even pinpoint as to like having that car, and he's the one that's actually driving it, and he's the one that actually communicates about it. But that's like the fascinating thing about wealth is like, people that don't have it, all they can do is imagine about it, right? So like, you just have that mentality of what it is. Yeah.
Stealth wealth is like a real thing these days. Because like people like to hate on the people that have money because they don't understand the good things that you could do with it. I feel like, but that's a whole nother conversation. I wanted to talk more about like your business though, to just like understand what you do. We mentioned it like last meeting, but I guess like I wanted to start with two questions, kind of like, how do you think about the operations and growth of your company? And then like to get to segue into that, like how long did it take you to brush off all your corporate habits, thoughts, and like did you struggle with that at all?
Yes. So let's go with the first one first. It's an interesting question that I don't know that I've thought as properly about. I have always, to give you like my background in like, not big, I can argue with myself here, but somewhere between fifth and seventh grade, I decided I wanted to be a footwear designer. That's what I wanted to do with my life, and I was going to figure out how to do it. And I'm from a small town. There was nobody else like me. In many ways, there was nobody else like me. So I had to figure out my own path to get to where I was at. And there's some negatives and some positives to that. There's far more positives, but one of the negatives was that I had such a path and such a, starting at a really young age, like dead seriously, starting at about 12 years old, I was figuring out how to make this career happen for me. So by the time like I even get to college, like I've already been like so disciplined and regimented in this section. The next section, I kind of kept that same mentality. And as I finally got that first job, it was actually kind of crushing. Like it because I felt like I was going into a space that everybody was like me. And like, and then I also realized once I got into that spot, it wasn't like the previous 10 years of my life where I could say, this is what I have to do now. This is what I have to do now. Now I have to not work with other people in a bad way, but I have to work off of other people's schedules, right? You're a part of a team. You're a part of a corporation. And I couldn't control growth at the rate I wanted it. And like on the other side of it, like the, I'm grateful for it, but like I started taking private art lessons when I was 3. So I was always with groups of people that were 2 to 3 years above me in everything that I did. Like, and even as I fast forward and I became like a leader at GM, like within design, I was younger. I was like 8 to 9 years younger than everybody else that was a leader. So it was always this situation where I know I'm ready for something, and when I couldn't control that growth. So as I said, like my first shoe job, like not New Balance, the company, it's not their fault at all. They're phenomenal. They're great. There's good people there and there's everything. But for me, I wasn't growing at the rate that I wanted. And it was really like hard. It was really crushing to me. And I couldn't get the world to see the way I wanted to see. And what I realized coming out of that like 5-year stint there, as I transitioned into GM, which is much bigger and the product timeline is different and longer, was that I had to start looking at things in 2-year spans. And it was like 6 months ahead of me, I can control. and make happen. And then 6 months after that, I can strategize for what the next phase is control after that one. And then the next 6 months after that, so 18 months in, I can like basically outline as to like, all right, once I do these first 12 months is where it's going to be. And then 6 months after that, it's kind of like the open sky. It's the blue sky of like the high target of where to get at. So I started looking at myself in 2 year spans, and I still do that. And even with now, having good people, good design, and other stuff like that, which is the consultancy, it's like I look at it in the same vein because people are going to come in and come out. Obviously, I want to work with everyone forever, but like that's the way it is. And how I control those 2 years and how I navigate it is something within my realm, because there's also outside factors past that, right? There's the entire scenario of a global economy. There's family and life and other things that can happen. But 2 years feels like something that I can always navigate and strategize within. To answer your question of like the long term side of things, like I don't necessarily, I mean, realistically, I just don't want to work past like 50, like work. I still want to work, but I don't want to work, meaning that I have to like sit and hustle and fight to find like another client or another job or another design thing. I want it to be, I want to be that like artist that's able to just, and I think I'm kind of already doing it now, just to be frank, but able to focus and pull in on like the projects that bring the best out of me and the best out of the person that I'm working with. Um, Too much of a lot of this stuff has become a commercial product, and that's where you're seeing a struggle. Whereas like my profession, I believe that I want to be able to do that thesis. I want to be able to do like 2 to 3 theses right before I die. Of like, this is what I've learned. This is what I've gained. This is what I believe it should be. Um, but yeah, that's the first part. I don't know if you have any questions off of that, but I can keep building into the next one too.
Well, yeah, because like I know you started your shoe consultancy while you were still at GM. So like it wasn't
I started it 8 months after being a GM. Yeah.
right. Yeah, so you were doing them at the same time. Like when you decided to go like full into it and like leave GM, you feel like you had kind of already at that point built all the kind of entrepreneur muscles and it was kind of like easy.
Yeah, I mean, I say we because, so my wife and I have been together since high school. So like we
I feel
tend,
like that low key helps so much when people
it does. And in fact, it's fascinating. Like I felt like such an outsider when we moved to Boston, and like, and people have been like, oh, you've got your fiance with you and you're only 23. How could you decide that and stuff like that? And it's like, and it'd be like a weird, and I'm more kind of like, yo, fuck you, what do you care, right? But like but as I look at it now and I look at what we have and what we've been able to build, it's 100% because of that. And I'm not saying that like what we did is for everybody. There's an element of us that's us, right? That this works for us. It doesn't have to be that, but I mean, we opened our first bank account together. We got our first cells together. Like that phone number that you text me on, that's the number I've had since her and I opened up our cell plan when we were 18. I mean, like all of that stuff is like, it's foundational and also taught because we kind of, I mean, not kind of, we totally moved to Boston with like $8,500, like, and it was, you learn to manage a bank account together. You learn to build these things together. You learn how to work together. And to some extent, not entirely, but it was something that I always paid attention to because like on the GM job, like I was navigating major, contracts and other pieces and other elements, major stuff. And it always seemed like the person that was most difficult to work with was like the person that wasn't married. And I was like, well, it's because they can't figure out how to manage any relationship. But that's my own anecdote. But for me, her and I, like I started it, like I said, like 8 months out, I kind of realized like I've always done multiple things at once. I've always been doing stuff on the side, no matter where I was at. Even in like high school when I had jobs, I was always like having 2 to 3 jobs at once and doing other pieces. So when I went to GM and kind of switching to just cars, I was like, "Oh, this is weird." Like, all right, well, I'm still going to draw shoes because basically what I would do at New Balance, because Stacy was in the midst of getting her master's, like what I would do at New Balance, I'd come home and I would draw more shoes. I would just build the portfolio up and I would do the shoes that I wanted to do that I couldn't do there, right? So I've always had this mentality of kind of working around the clock, but it doesn't feel like work. So as we get into the GM situation, they encouraged me to like keep doing it. At that time, I'd been blogging a lot too, and that was really blowing up. And they were like, just keep doing it. So I was like, all right. That blogging scenario is what ultimately led to me consulting, because when I left NB, I could start putting up all my shoe sketches whenever I wanted to do that other stuff, and that brought in all these people. And then I kind of had to figure it out. And I basically, I don't know what it is, or at least at that time, it felt like January through like April, I just never got really clients. But then like May through December, it was just always booming. And I don't know if it was just because of like quarters and companies like setting themselves in and stuff like that. But basically starting in 2012, that's the way it always worked. I mean, I would have, 2 to 3 clients a year that would be during that spring, summer, fall. And it just kept growing. And then it eventually kept growing into return. And at the same time, though, like the GM career was just fucking rocketing to the moon. And like, oh, here we go. I was just rocketing to the moon, and I had to like balance them. And to be frank with you, in like 15 was the third time that I turned down Nike, and we were going there. And then I used it. I was on the verge. I was already an acting leader at GM. I was already a manager. And I was like, yo, you guys got to make your decision. Because I'm either going here or I'm going here. And we were planning on going to Nike, but then they said some shit that I just didn't really fucking like. So we vetoed that. And then I got the manager spot. And like a manager spot at GM is a life changing thing. I mean, you get a company car, that's gas, that's insurance. You get like, you get brought into a different bonus structure, like other things like that, right? So in 15 mentally, I was like, no, we're just going all in on this so I can keep going up and move the step. And I actually started like not cutting out freelance and client work, but I started slowing it down and being more specific with it. And the real strength to a lot of this, and I hope this doesn't come off as greed because it wasn't, but I charged pretty high. And the reason I charged really high was to separate the people that were just talking shit. Because, like, just to be frank, even today, like, I get weekly people on Instagram or LinkedIn that want to do a shoe. They don't want to do a shoe. They want to say they have a shoe. And it's like, so I would throw really high quotes out there to basically, like, prove to me why we should do this and how dedicated are you. And that really built better clientele is what that actually built. That built people that had a plan. So by like 17, so we're 5 years into doing this, Stacy and in like 2017, I was like, I should just quit GM and do this. Like, I should just like not like I should just go all in. And we're from the Midwest, Jay, so we're pretty conservative. But we were like, well, let's let it kind of keep proving out. And at that point, we just had our daughters. So we had 2 kids. We were like, let it keep proving out, because at that point, income was equal. Just to be frank, like I was equal at GM. And then in 19, one of those key clients went away, and I was like, all right, this proved itself out right. Then 2 more came in like right away. And then COVID happened, and I thought COVID was going to wipe us clear. Did not. In fact, it fucking tripled during the time COVID happened and the amount of people that were doing it. And honestly, COVID was a perfect benchmark, because like a lot of this stuff, people act like you have to be in person to be doing these things. COVID was perfect for me because this is how I was already working. Like people were finally catching up to what I was doing. And like, and well, and it's an interesting statement, and I'm gonna get to this on your second part of your question. But like So then 20 happens and I'm able to balance everything even better because work-life balance is better and I can navigate and do all this stuff and it just keeps growing. And the next step for me at GM was to become a director. And I was on that path. And I don't know if anybody from GM listens to it, they might argue with me because it's a political nightmare there. But regardless, that was the next step and that was the next path. But it was clear to me, and this isn't a bad thing. This is corporate nature at any point that, you know, it's a bottleneck getting to the top. But it was clear to me that I wasn't really navigating skills as much anymore. It might have been like 15% of like what my talent actually was. And the other 85% is political. And that's an opinion. I don't care what anybody says. Political is nothing but an opinion. Yeah, I am in my own mind at all times. I'm on my own path. I'm thinking I could go off into the stars and do my own thing. So I could be walking down a hallway doing that. If I didn't say hello to the proper person, what's wrong with Brett? Like, he's got a bad attitude. He doesn't want to be a team player or some shit. So it was like, and it's just so stupid. And that has like the corporate like nature and heartbeat that those type of influences affect like so much product, affects so much stuff that's designed and created and decisions that are made. So much human emotion fucks up why so many Fortune 500 companies aren't as efficient as they could be. But anyway, I just sat there and was like, all right, it's very clear to me I'm only navigating this political area. So I went to them. I was like, this is where I'm at. I didn't get the director spot. I got a phenomenal raise, and I'm grateful for that to today. I think I think I earned it and I deserved it, but I'm still thankful for it. Uh, and basically in fall of 21, we were like, no, we're bouncing in the spring. Basically, I was going to get my bonus and get the hell out. That was the best way of looking at this. And we just put all the framework into it because the real statement by that time it came through, the amount of accounts that I had going and the amount of people that I was working for was far surpassing what I was doing at GM. And that was with me out ever talking about it. I never advertised that I was doing it. Never once did I put up on Instagram, yo, hire me or anything. In fact, I still don't do that. But nobody, like, it really wasn't out there. And then number two was the clear statement to me was like, look, we have a decade of data of making over the median income in America on the side. What happens if I go all in? What happens if I go all in? And then the other third part was, if not now, then when? Because realistically, what else am I waiting for? For the hand of God to come down and tell me that, yes, this will work for you? That's never going to happen. At the end of the day, it's never going to happen. And then I also knew that the fourth part was if I did stick around GM and play that winning game for a director, well, that's a max amount of income that I'm letting fall to the side with the hope of something politically that I can't control to have happen. So it was, and there was the other part of this, we're not going to talk about it, but the other part of this, there was some family, is still some family stuff going on, and I can balance more now by navigating that. As parents get old, things change. So you got to do that. But the other part too is like owning myself and owning my goals and owning that was far greater to me than allowing someone else to own it. So that's what basically ultimately made the decision to this time last year, because it's literally this time last year that we were like putting it all on paper. And then I waited a month. I waited until June 1st to tell them. But it just kind of all came together in that sense. So what your second question was the corporate structure, right? And how I broke it. I don't know that I have broke it yet. I can confidently say that if I had to go back into the corporate structure today, though, it would be brutal. But I also know,
I mean, like in your own company,
yeah, well, so I do think the reason why I am successful is because I have that structure and helping, you and I started this out by joking about the East Coast time zones and stuff like that. Like I already have a trained you know what? I'm actually going to use a better analogy. I'm going to use my son. My son started kindergarten in the fall of 19, right? So spring of 20 is when COVID happens. I then basically taught him on the side through the spring of 21. So the bulk of the end of his kindergarten and the full part first, like 2/3 of his first grade. And it was really hard, very grateful for it, but it was really hard. But what I can positively say is if he didn't have those first 6 months of structure of how school worked, it would have been even more miserable because you're basically taking a kid with no structure and trying to teach them to have structure. So for anybody that's like watching this and wanting to go down the path that we're all doing, I do think there's elements that are not necessarily needed, but they will help you and grow you in a different way. And I think like right now, I'm helping right now being creative director.
That you feel like you could only get though out of a corporate
I don't think it's only out of a corporate scenario, and I don't think it's only out of being in person. It's how to work with more than one person and
I don't
how
think you
to kind
need
of
to be in corporate to do that.
no, you don't. It does not have to be a corp. That's the easiest way to point to it. You don't. I mean, it can be a team of 3, 5, 6, 7, but there's little core competencies of like just knowing how to individually drive your own work, right? Like how to like keep yourself going. Because especially on the creative side, a lot of this shit's mental. A lot of this is like, am I doing the right thing? Am I drawing this properly? Am I creating this properly? Do I know how to do this? A lot of that stuff's internal, and knowing where to look for those resolutions. That might be a person, that might be, I don't know, it might be a podcast, it might be anything, but it's just knowing how to get that guidance if you need it. So maybe I'm talking about mentorship to some extent, but I think those are like little things that like come into it and kind of come. And I also think being around other people in some capacity, if you're competitive, brings a better piece out of you as well. Like having somebody else that's performing high will ultimately either make you perform higher or decide that you can't perform at that highest, right? So whether you're online or in person, that stuff finds its way, right? Like I would say all of us are very high performing people. We've never met in person. We find our ways to each other. So you have to find your path and what that rhythm is. And I think sometimes being around a culture creates that for you. I think where my corporate stuff still helps me a ton is like SNIMS, like we're growing rapidly, and having that corporate culture, I'm able to help like, well, here's what I look for or what we looked for when we were hiring another person for a team that's a leader. Little pieces like that can come into play and help us where we don't have to feel things out as much because you have somebody that has the experience doing it, right? But again, that's all stuff that can be learned, right? We're not surgeons, so it's if we hire somebody and it doesn't work out or if we do anything, we ain't kill anybody. I hope we didn't, but like yeah.
I draw a lot of parallels from what you're saying now with like the pressures of the politics and the corporate with my personal experience with like sports. Because I got to college and like you were saying, I feel like, oh, I'm going to be in this environment where everybody takes their craft seriously. I'm like thinking, all right, I'm playing a D1 sport and I have this whole regimented schedule because I'm with the team that I have to follow. I got to wake up and lift at 5 in the morning and I still have to go lift and do my own individual stuff so I can get my own leg ahead, you know what I mean? But everybody else doesn't necessarily do all the extra stuff. I'm a freshman. I'm hitting home runs in batting practice, but then when it comes time to play, there's going to be a senior that starts. And so it's like, what am I supposed to do about that? You know what I mean? And then I hurt my shoulder in the summer playing summer ball. And I'm like, I already saw not jobs or corporate. I was like, literally anything that I don't own myself is a corporate politic type game. You know what I mean? Other people are going to be making decisions thinking they're better or smarter than me. And I'm not playing that. I'm going to make my own way. But it was a confidence that I knew that I just could do that because I watched myself put the effort into being the best at what I was doing at the sport. And then I translated that into like business and other things that I do, into creativity. But yeah, I feel
I always
go ahead.
yeah.
Sports taught me a lot of the things that you're saying you learned through like business and like your job experience, personal. Like learning how to like balance other people's emotions, learning your role, like when to speak, how to lead, how to look in people's eye and know if they have it, all that type of stuff. I feel like you get a lot of that from sports. A metaphor I told one of my little homies the other day, I said, you learn A, B, C from school, you learn X, Y, Z from sports. The rest of the alphabet you got to teach yourself.
That's probably accurate. I think for me, the other part that was like vastly important of what you were just saying there is like I always felt like art and design and other pieces like that is very much like a sport, and I treated it that way, where it was like I would go home and draw more, draw more, draw more, and draw more, take or think more, and like, and I treated it that way because we were being recruited that way as well. Like, if you were gonna get like, man, I went to a school that was like $80,000 a year. There was no way I was coming out of that school without a ridiculously high paying job because why did I pay for that? And like, from my view, it was my energy and effort, and this could be said for anything, but my energy and effort and growth of design was only going to happen by what I put into it and what I grew out of it.
Exactly.
And it's like, and as it took me a while to like, this sounds really stupid. Don't take the mafia connection. This is our second mafia reference in the past week, but like,
cool,
the dream going up was Tony Soprano, and it wasn't like Tony's scenario of being a mafia leader, but that freedom to dip in and out of like projects. Like that's the way I looked at his day. It's like, all right, well, he's got to go get money from the Russians. He's got to go make sure that the Bing is working. Like, you know, it was more of a, and then he goes home to the family. Like from my view, it was like this guy's got the ultimate freedom, but he's also got the other stuff that likes keep him inspired. Like,
so do the mafia thing legal. That's it.
exactly. Yeah. So that's always been my dream is to like be able to do that. And I mean, I might wear a velour suit at some point, but like it wasn't in one. It was just
Cashmere kimonos now.
yes. Of freedom where it was like, because like in real wealth to me isn't a mass amount of money. Like as we look at many different people that we talk about, like LeBron, Jay, or someone else, the likelihood of them being able to spend that money in their time is not.
No, that's because it's a purpose thing. Whoa, all right.
Right, they could. Right, they really could, because we could use another Eiffel Tower. You know what I'm saying? Like we could use another.
Like I could spend. I have an idea. I want to build
The Hollywood sign could be redone as well. We had that idea while in LA.
Can we put
Can we
on the Hollywood
lights
sign
on
at night? You know what I'm saying? But like, I want to build a city, and like I have a vision. Like, if you want me to fully execute it, and like you saw like what I have, and then like the stretch goal, and then this is what we can do if we accomplish all that. I could spend $1,800 billion. Like,
Well, but the way I look at
and help the world. Swear to God, like.
Well, I agree with that, but to me, the way I look at wealth is like owning your own time. Like that's the way I look at it. It's like being able to put my energy where I see it best.
Dude, it's owning your time, owning location freedom.
Location
is huge too. Time, location, and financial. Those three together, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's I don't know, man. It's just an interesting. It's interesting because I feel like to some extent, I kind of have everything I want right now. Can things improve and get better?
Wow,
Absolutely.
how great does that feel though? Like,
It feels really good.
No, seriously, like, cause you know what I'm saying. You took all.
Well, in call that's the fulfillment that we're all looking for. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, nah. Congratulations.
Half it up.
Thank you. Right. I mean, it is weird, but it's like, because I don't think I have it yet. I don't know. Content used to be the worst word to me. Like, Because what that meant to me is that, like, well, what's driving you? What's keeping you going? What's that better element, right? So I don't know that I'm content. I don't ever want that. I want to stay hungry. But like this mentality of, and I'll be real, I think I probably work more now, but it does not feel like work. It does not feel, and it's probably owning it and it being mine, right? And also being something that's fulfilling at the same time. But that to me is like, I'm not like a crazy patriotic dude by any means, but that to me is what the American dream actually is. Like the American dream to many is a capitalistic dream of like owning items. But to me, the American dream is utilizing the capitalistic system to get yourself to balance your life the way you want it, right? Like, yeah.
No, but you said like you
It's
think
big W's.
people who, like a lot of super rich people, like they just amass all this wealth, but it's like they don't have an end game. Their whole goal was to amass the wealth, and so I feel like that's just like a lack of like kind of purpose. People, they'll make, okay, I won the lottery or I have $100 million, and it's like, all right, now what? And then I'll piddle paddle and be like, oh, I could do this or do that. I'll box, you know what I'm saying? But like, that's why I want to look LeBron in the eye and be like, yo, let's change the world together. Because I know that you focus on playing basketball, being to go to that. God bless your soul. You inspire me. But like, I can come with these visions so that when you say you want to be more an athlete, it's game changing. You know what I'm saying? And like, you are worth $1 billion, but like, that's, you spent $1 billion and it's going to change everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, income and equity, like, people don't understand the difference in terms of net worth. Like, it's what you own and how much that thing can be sold for and or produces, not how much do they pay you per month or per year. And so being able to work with people, like creating a system, a company, like the best come together to do their best, and an environment where people want to do that so that we can actually facilitate the people at the top coming together to spend those billions of dollars in the best way. And this brings us to the next point, because like you kind of said, like kind of the middle class is gone and like the rich get richer and blah, blah, blah. But like, when I thought about that in like macro, through the whole progress of humanity.
This is off our AI conversation, right?
Correct.
I'm an idiot.
Yeah. If we look at like the chart of humanity, like the chart of the S&P 500, it's never down all time on progress, on human progress. And so I feel like even when we hit like revolution politically, that's almost like a depression economically, and we long term over 500 years, 1,000 years, whatever, we'll always make progress. And so like, as there are more rich people, that pushes the goal of that is to push the standard of living up from the bottom, to raise the bottom with the top. And so if we can actually affect that and make that not just the goal, but the message, it'll help exponentially in like, I feel like the transition of wealth we're going to see, because we're going to get to gig economy and AI and all of these things. They don't need to be negative, right? Because they can just do what they've always done to humanity and elevate our baseline. And like, we can trickle down, you know what I'm saying, microwaves and air conditioning and iPads and the rest of it over time if we continue to push at the ceiling. And
I agree with what you're saying. My main comment around the AI thing yesterday is more of those that are like right now, like the way that I think it will go is that it'll become a tool to the people that are capable to use it as a tool. And I think that's with anything. Like, I can remember years ago a conversation with another like creative of how I don't know, elements of 3D CAD and stuff was going to eliminate their job. And it's not. At the end of the day, it's how you use it. This is all just a tool. And I think it will separate itself from people that are talented and that are good with it. You know, right now you see people basically just remaking images and being cute with it and being real cool and other pieces like that. However, there is elements that it has the power of like, I think restaurants and automation is probably one of the key pieces to this, right? In the sense that like if you own a restaurant, it's help that is the hardest part. It's not necessarily getting people to buy your product. It's not necessarily getting people to have cheaper prices on food for you to be able to do it. It's actually getting consistent help in there. And the other part of that is because they bounce around from job to job, and it's not always seen as the best job on the planet. So you have people that come in and out of it that are not stable. So I could totally see a McDonald's shifting to entire automation and maybe one manager that pops in there a couple times, almost like a massive vending machine, right? That was my comments to it yesterday of like, that's how it's
those in New York.
Yeah, and that's what you're heading toward. Yep.
I went to McDonald's and it was all just like a new massive iPad. Right. And I just clicked what I wanted, and then they said my number. They're just people working in the back, like you said, a massive vending machine.
COVID taught a lot of those places a lot, especially McDonald's. McDonald's had some of its highest profitability it ever had during COVID. So there's a lot of the COVIDs around the country, especially in rural areas, that never opened their inside back up because A, it's an insurance liability. B, the amount of people that they have to keep to run the inside is astronomical. And it's like, when you sit there and you think of that, it's like, well, what are we doing with that other person that doesn't have that job now, right? And I don't know what the answer to that is. And I'm not the most empathetic human being on the planet. My answer is always like, well, that individual person should figure out how to grow themselves and get further. And that's not the right answer all the time. I'll state that. But there's an element that this will tip of like, how does it change, and how does it change the society, and how do you learn to work with it and not just have it replace, right? That's the way I view it. So it's just an interesting time of not a fear of the unknown, but the unknown of like the unknown of what can become the known, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah.
I feel like over the course of my life, we've seen like humanity shed some of its worst traits. Like, we're seeing for the first time ever, collectively, we think war is obsolete. Just got there. And I feel like the next frontier, we're going to say greed is obsolete, because you realize 1 + 1 = 3. And collaboration, especially in capitalistic economies, is way more efficient. And as we kind of get to the point of like, well, greed actually slows me down and greed is obsolete, I feel like that's where we'll see the biggest progress. There's always going to be like a fight against it, like the negative never stops, but I feel like that's a huge like mental understanding. It's like empathy can trend up or down, but like if people think that it's better to be working with other people than working alone, just like we think that like you shouldn't kill people, like a no-brainer kind of common sense collective consciousness thing. I feel like
Absolutely. I mean, it's yeah, but I think like the other part of this too is like you know, with it being quarterly earnings season here, and like just reading as a lot of it goes to it, so much that we still judge quarterly earnings off of is like what was established in the 70s and 80s, and it's like that life doesn't exist anymore. That life is gone, and I think that's also a major issue that we haven't talked a lot about politics to some extent here. The other major issue is like these idea of politicians, like the fact that I don't care what side anybody falls on, but the fact that we're voting for two men that are, I mean, like 20 years outside of their 60s almost. Like, it's like there's no youth. There's no conversation of like what is currently a real thing that's happening that's like affecting it. It keeps getting decided by super old. So as I sit and think of like where we're at with like what you were just laying out and what I was laying out with like AI and other pieces, it's like you're in this middle area of when does the transition and break off finally happen, that we're not trying to establish ourselves still as when capitalism was done in the 50s after World War II.
Like, we have to make a decision if we're going to use private enterprise to do it or if the government's going to do it. We haven't forever. And like eventually they're like, all right, we're going to make a central bank. And we make a decision and move forward. But like we have to do that with more things. Like I want to make a private infrastructure company to like build cities. And I think that's like a job that the government really just does that they would not mind if some private citizens took a leap at. You know what I mean? Especially to innovate at the highest level to make what they do easier. But yeah, we got rapid fire topics to get into. It's like,
wait, hold on, real quick. I recommend this book because you said a comment just about somewhat of like fear of the unknown. There's a book I've been reading, a series of books by this dude named Paul Selig. I've been reading for a while. This one's really good, but the whole thing is beyond the known. So if you're curious, I highly recommend it. I recommend it. It has a very spiritual scent to it. But lens, I'll say. But it's probably his series of books I've gotten a lot of clarity out of. So I highly recommend anybody even listening to this. Highly recommend Paul Selig's books.
All right.
Yeah, good to know. My series going off right now.
I will I'll pick that up. All right, hit me with your rapid fire. Let's do some rapid fire.
So first, we did the last.
How does it feel to draw on the last?
To be honest, it felt like it didn't make sense because it felt like if I was to have like a model, like what I'm trying to say, not a model, a mannequin, and I like drew my design on a mannequin, it wouldn't really make sense to me. But I did it because you suggested it. And yeah.
It helps you realize that like you're not just drawing flat, right? Like, and you really get a size of those pieces.
I guess. Yeah, I mean, I said what I thought. But anyway, like this one has the kind of changes to the last that I wanted, because last time you explained just like how the slope of this, you would kind of understand how you wanted to change. Like on here, it's like pretty flat, and I understood you said based on the design, I'll pull it up again. You were like, you probably want this to be, instead of like flat, to be like a continuous line.
Yep.
So I think I actually agree with that. Instead of like making it flat and then try to like jut up, to just make this instead of like just one long.
You don't want it to be in like angles, right? Like you want it to be
kind of like, I feel like it's maybe better to with this line here. Like,
yeah, 100%. Honestly, that's your best line. Yeah. And I don't mean that in a slight of a way, not laughing. That's what you want to try and hit.
Yeah, so we did the last. So what next?
I think study it and make sure that you're happy with it, and then we pull a pattern from it.
How do you pull a pattern
from? If you put tape over the top of it, you would then cut off each section, and that's essentially your pattern.
Okay. I see what you're doing. Just like cloth.
Right. Yeah, it is just like in that sense. Yeah.
All right. And then still rapid fire. Do you like watches?
It's a good question. So I'm an incredibly patient man, Jay. And what I mean by that is that I won't buy something until I have exactly what I want. So do I own any watch right now? No, but I will.
Really?
Yeah.
That kind of surprises me. Okay. But you said that you will, so you have your eye on.
Yeah, what type of watches do you like?
I want a Daytona.
Okay.
Okay.
Classic.
Something X. Yeah.
Nice and classy.
Is that it? Or
That's it. I'll take that one and I'm good. One and done and I'm out.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Ooh. Are you gonna rock it as like a daily, like everyday thing until just keep getting it clean? Yeah. Pass it down.
Yep. Probably. Yeah. If they want it. Yeah. I never assumed my kid my shit, but yeah.
then
I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will too.
thoughts on supplements, vitamins, natural
I
remedies,
take a lot of vitamins.
etc.
I take, I've always been naturally pretty healthy. Or I don't know if I want to say naturally pretty healthy. I've always been pretty lucky that I don't get sick. I didn't really start getting sick until we had kids bringing stuff home. And even then I wasn't sick. I would just get like stuffy. So I've always been in like, not saying I haven't had it, but I've never tested positive for COVID either. And I'm sure I've been the fuck around it because I don't really go over the top to protect myself. But I take a lot of vitamins, like a ton of vitamins, and I drink a lot of water.
Tell the people, what do you take?
I take a good multivitamin. I take a D3. I take turmeric, and I take black seed oil. In fact, like I got into a lot of this stuff by following Styles P from the locks and like vitamins and pieces like that, and it just made me go research further. And I've been doing that for 7 years now. Yeah.
Put me on to what exactly, first, how do you take the turmeric and the black seed oil, and what are their like benefits that you've seen?
Black seed oil essentially keeps like all mucus and congestion out of you. And what I found from having kids, that was the main thing that attacked me, because that's what they bring home. They bring home just constant colds. So my goal was to make sure that like if they were getting a cold, I wasn't going to have it, so I could take care of them. So, and I just keep it going. I take 1250 milligrams of it in a capsule a day. I have done the actual liquid to it. No, that's for a special person. That taste is very strong. And the turmeric started about 2 years ago, just as I'm getting older, to keep myself being able to run. Just simply put, and you know, it helps with joints. It helps. I mean, a lot of people that have a lot of athletic surgeries, that's what they end up utilizing to cure from it. But yeah.
Okay.
And then D3 because it's winter. Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
Has there been we talked like earlier about kind of the ideas of like the operations and growth, the strategy in your head behind it, but has there been a software that's made a big difference for your operations?
I don't know if I'd call it software, but the tool that for totally changed me to be able to balance everything was the iPad Pro. And the reason I
Good answer
is because it's the first one that actually felt good to draw on. Like Wacom had their stuff like that, but it changed my life, because before I would draw, scan, and do other things like that. I like the hand touch. I think the reason why a lot of my designs personally look good is because there's hand touch in the creation to it. It doesn't look stiff. iPad Pro changed my life forever. When the business really started blowing up and I was still at GM, the iPad Pro changed my life forever, and it still does. Just simply put.
No, thanks. That's a good answer to that. I feel the same way. Like I design on paper, and my mentor that's like started this unmade thing. I just saw him, and I was like, "You could get an iPad Pro." He was like, "Nah, it reminds me of like day one when I just got my light box and my pencil." I was like, "Do you, bro?" But the iPad has been a game changer for designs. Like I've made literally like the kimono, the avant-garde, like the shoe, all of this stuff. Like I draw on the iPad. It's way better than paper. I can be just more detailed with it. And I've done the Wacom tablet thing. Like, I took classes in college to do all of that. Like, no, I don't.
Feels like my hands floating above the drawing.
Right. Yeah, no, it's disconnected from art, it feels like. I don't like it. But, all right.
I got one. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest athlete ever to live?
There's generational differences, but
my opinion is not in my generation. Not in this generation. Not really.
Mine is, if you were to ask me this 10 years ago, is Michael. Well, if you were to ask me this 15 years ago, is Michael Jordan. If you were to ask me 10 years ago and to now, it's Kobe Bryant.
Okay.
And I suggest everybody go and read The Rise, and you'll understand exactly why Kobe Bryant is the perfect blend of what it is. Mike, the athletics in this world don't exist without Mike and the way they are today, just from everything. Kobe was born to do what he became, and he willed his way into it. And if you read The Rise, everybody needs to read The Rise. And because he was able to watch how his dad failed in the NBA and realize what he wanted to overcome to do that at an extremely young age. And then because his dad was successful enough, he had access to people that he could learn from and really fucking learn. And he took all of those pieces and just kept, even to the last day in the NBA, drove himself to keep being better and learn and learn and learn and learn. And I think that is how you use your past and your experiences to create your future. And for me, I go Kobe.
Okay. Kobe's number 10 on my top 10 list.
Wow. Topic number 1. But
we could do it next time. I'll say just like real quick. I think we should all share what we think. Just we don't have to say the whole background. I think Muhammad Ali is the greatest athlete of all time.
Okay, I can respect that. I can respect it.
I think LeBron James is the best athlete.
There you go, LeBron. All right.
I thought that. No. I thought that before I met him. Complete
LeBron's
complete truth. And now I met him, and that's just the coolest thing ever to me. Like,
we could chat, do our little sports thing next time.
That's another. We could talk about sports. We saw you posted Concepts and Coffee on LinkedIn. God bless. And
Be doing it every time I put it up, man.
We've connected with, though, we saw liked it, and we were like, oh, do you actually know Cesar Dropo?
Yeah.
Awesome. Fire. He was like one of the like very early when we started going through LinkedIn, like we both connected with him and we were like, this dude.
Been trying to talk to.
We would love to talk to this guy. Like
we talked a lot. Awesome. We still haven't talked to Cesar.
I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say we're best friends, but yeah, we talk. So I can let me throw some connects. So I
saw the clip. Cesar, come join one of the episodes one time.
Right. That'd be awesome.
All right, I have to jump to another call. I am 10 minutes late. But I'll connect us all. Yeah.
All good. I'm dropping last week's episode today too, so you'll see the promo for that. I'll drop it in the chat so you could check it out real quick.
All right, gentlemen.
Have a good day.
This is beautiful as always. We'll talk soon.
Of course.
All right, later.
It's